This is the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys Network. Here's your host, Will Hill.
Welcome to the Shoulda Bet More podcast, presented by Gold Boys. Coming up on the show, Scott Seidenberg of pregame.com will join us. We will go over all of these pennant races in baseball, some big picture stuff, futures, awards, get his thoughts on NFL training camp, which usually you wouldn't talk NFL training camp, but there's been a lot of news. Last time we talked, J.J. McCarthy had just gotten hurt, and we were going to see whether he was out for a little bit or out for the long haul, and he's out for the long haul. He's going to miss the season. I mean, first top 10 pick in history to miss the entire rookie year because of an injury. So, typical Vikings just can't catch a break. So we'll talk about some of that stuff with Scott. Baseball, football. I'll start with baseball because these races are getting good. We'll just go down the board here. Yankees and Orioles. Orioles win Thursday. Orioles and Yankees now tied 72-50. Pretty fitting that they have an identical record. I mentioned this before. They've just been so hot at the same time, so cold at the same time. There's a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels where both teams probably feel like, man, there was a time in this season where we should have been up, 5-6 games. And I guess it just sort of evens out in the wash here that they both have the same record in the East. Cleveland, Minnesota in the Central, and I'll get to the odds in a minute. It's just amazing. Big picture. The league is so up and down, and there's so much parity, and even these good teams, even the best teams in Cleveland right now, which is just shocking. The best record in baseball, the best winning percentage in baseball, as they enter Friday with a 595 winning percentage. It's just incredible because they just had a 7-game losing streak. And, they went into the Minnesota series last weekend. Minnesota was 4 games behind them, or 3 games behind them. And Minnesota won the first 2 games of a doubleheader Friday, both games of a doubleheader on Friday, cut the lead to 1, had a chance to tie them Saturday and go ahead on Sunday if they won both. Well, Cleveland won Saturday, Cleveland won Sunday, and now you look up and they are back up to a 4-game lead. Minnesota game is still in progress right now. So that's just typical league where all of these teams are up and down. Philly's been up and down. Astros have been up and down. We know the Yankees, the Mets. The Mets had a horrible, just an absolutely devastating loss on Thursday, up 5-0 against the A's, as they are now 2 behind Atlanta. Atlanta played well in San Francisco, knocked San Francisco out of the mix here. But I'll just keep going division by division. Cleveland with a good now 4-game lead at worst heading into Friday. Kansas City 6 out in the loss column. Seattle, another team that had a bad loss because Houston now up a full 4 games in the loss column. Seattle was up 1-0 the entire game. They only got 1 hit. The Detroit pitcher for the Tigers walked 4 guys in the first inning. Seattle only gets a run. They hold on to that lead until the 8th inning. Then they give up a 2-run shot to Baez, and they lose the game. So 4 back, and not just 4 back. Houston's got the White Sox this weekend. Meanwhile, Seattle has to deal with Skeens on Friday night. Gilbert versus Skeens. It's a great pitching matchup. So Houston is threatening to kind of run and hide here. And if you get that thing up to like 6 games plus, if you're Seattle with your offense, you feel like you're going to have a hard time catching them. Texas is dead. They're 10 out in the loss column. Atlanta, Philly is in good shape again after, they've been up and down too, but they are now going to be a full 7-game lead over Atlanta. They still have 7 head-to-head, but 7 is a comfortable lead. Milwaukee in the Central is going to win that division. They were struggling with the Dodgers and struggling just in general, had lost 4 in a row. Were trailing the Dodgers, came back and won that game on Wednesday, and then beat the Dodgers again on Thursday. So every time you think Milwaukee's going to come back to the pack, they win the games they're supposed to, and they still have a 9-game lead over both the Reds and the Cardinals. Cardinals have really come back to the pack and fallen out of it here, both 60 and 61, the Reds and the Cardinals. And then in the West, and this is amazing, the Dodgers at 71-51 have a 2-game lead over Arizona and a 2-game lead over the Padres. The Padres and the Diamondbacks both within 2 games. Just shocking. And you can't really kill the Dodgers. Dodgers, I only lost 2 out of 3 to Milwaukee. They have not played that badly. It's just Arizona and the Padres. The Diamondbacks and the Padres never lose. They just never, ever lose. They're both just an incredible mark since the All-Star break, where it's hard to shake these teams. Padres 19-4 since the All-Star break. Diamondbacks 20-5. Dodgers now 15-10. 15-10 is not that bad. It's just when you're playing, you're winning 20 out of 25 games like the Padres and Diamondbacks have. It's hard to do better than that. So interesting races. I pull up the odds. Yankees play the Yankees play the Tigers this weekend. Orioles host the Red Sox. Red Sox are another interesting team because they're in some trouble here. They might be in the danger zone where they lost Thursday night, had a bad loss Wednesday to the Rangers. And they're in a position now where their schedule gets pretty tough at Baltimore, then at Houston. Meanwhile, Kansas City, who's 2.5 games ahead of Boston, they get the Angels in the red. So again, that's in a little bit of that danger territory. We don't want to get 4 back, 5 back, and Kansas City has a chance here to put a little distance between themselves and the Red Sox. The Red Sox got buried last weekend against Houston, so this is a tough stretch coming up. Orioles the rest of the weekend, then the Astros. Meanwhile, Kansas City has a tough schedule. So fun races. I mean, really fun races. I thought for a while it was just going to be the Yankees and the Orioles. Remember, a lot of these other divisions were wide in terms of the gap where the Guardians had a big lead in the Central. It was the Mariners at the time, believe it or not, had the big lead in the West. The Dodgers in the West, the Phillies in the West, the Brewers, whereas like Yankees and Orioles is going to be a good race. The wild card races are going to be good, but that's about it. Well, that's not the case anymore. All of these races, or a lot of these races, have gotten very, very tight here in Major League Baseball. Should be a fun 6 weeks, and I know once football gets here, it's all football all the time, but these races are going to be a lot of fun. As far as the odds, Yankees minus 175 to win the East, Orioles plus 135. I still would not in any way trust the Yankees. They avoided embarrassment. They avoided disaster and won that 3rd game against Chicago. They won 2 out of 3, but they got killed Monday night in Chicago, and they were in some trouble Wednesday night. If they ever lost 2 out of 3, boy, I know it's only 1 game, but you had to at least get 2 out of 3 against that god-awful White Sox team. They did. I still don't trust them. The pitching outside of Judge and Soto, there's just not a lot of offense. Chisholm is hurt now, so that big trade deadline has really turned into just Mark Leiter Jr. with Chisholm being hurt, De Los Santos getting DFA'd. Just not a good deadline, not aggressive enough. I mentioned that at the time. So to me, from the betting perspective, I would take the Orioles plus 135 just because I absolutely in no way trust the Yankees. Just way too inconsistent, way too many flaws. Guardians minus 300 in the Central. Astros now minus 425 in the West. Phillies minus 800 in the East. Brewers minus 1800 in the Central. And then the Dodgers still minus 300 in the West. Padres plus 450. Diamondbacks plus 550. I don't know that I see a bet there. I mean, I would take the Orioles plus money, and I guess I'd probably take the Padres over the Diamondbacks. I know the Diamondbacks have been hot. They got Eduardo Rodriguez back off the IL. And maybe more so this applies to the postseason. I like the Padres, the lineup, and really the bullpen, because they can go almost the old Yankee model, the Kansas City Royals model of inning 6, 7, 8, and 9 when you really need a game. You could just march out good reliever after good reliever. Suarez, Tanner Scott, Adam, who they got from the Rays, they can really shorten the game. And that is so effective in the playoffs where a lot of these games are close, low scoring, 1-1 after 6 innings, 2-2 after 7. If you can get 8, 10, 12 lockdown outs from your bullpen, that is a big, big plus to have. So I still think the Dodgers probably win that division, but my goodness, the fact that it's within 2 games is just shocking. I don't even remember, because I didn't even look at what the odds were in that division, I don't know, a month ago, 2 months ago, because it was just assumed the Dodgers were going to run and hide, and why wouldn't you think that? So just a strange season. Nobody's great. Probably nobody's going to win 100 games. Even the best teams are so up and down. It is so wide open. So it should make for some fun races. It should make for, a really, really entertaining playoffs. I talked about it. I think they put too many teams in. It was a perfect mix when you had the 2 wild cards and they would knock each other off right away, and you'd be down to 4 teams in each league. I thought that was perfect. I like the 1 game scenario of the drama. So they're not going to go back to it. And these best 2 out of 3 are fun. It is too many teams. It really is too many teams. I wish it was the other way, but these are going to be fun races, and these are going to be fun playoffs. By the way, Padres are 16-1 to win it all. Of all the bets, Dodgers plus 370, the short shot. Yankees 5-1, no thank you. Philly 6-1. It's not bad, because I do think that's interesting. I think that's, if you say, hey, right now, forget the odds, forget everything, who wins it, I still go with Philly, just because that lineup is so deep. They have a real home field advantage, which you don't get a lot in baseball. That crowd can be super loud. I know they lost games 6 and 7 against Arizona last year in that building, but they have a real home field advantage. They have a pretty good bullpen, and you can still throw Wheeler 2 games in a best of 5, 3 times in a best of 7. Even one of them is out of the bullpen. You can still follow it up with, Nola, Suarez. There's still enough there, I think. And that lineup's just so good and so deep. So I'd probably still go with Philly of all these teams. If you're looking for a longer shot, I think, like I said, the Padres, just because of their bullpen and their lineup, I think are interesting. I mean, look at the Mets 90-1, certainly drifting out of it. Red Sox 65-1, they're drifting out of it. Royals 40-1, that's another one that's not terrible, just because you do have Lugo and Reagan. Now, Lugo hasn't been great lately, but Lugo and Reagan's at the top of to start a series at the top of the rotation. Witt, who's just a tremendous player. So, man, you really can't count any of these teams out in terms of if they get in. You'd have a hard time saying, hey, this team's in the playoffs, but they have no shot once they get in. Uh, there's really not that team because it's so wide open. There's no dominant team. And I thought the Giants were making a run. They went into that Monday game, that Monday series against the Braves. They were only a game and a half out of a playoff spot. And they had a bad loss Sunday against the Tigers. All right, it's one game. They've been playing well. They lost another game, 1-0 Monday night to the Braves, and then they lost another 1-run game on Tuesday, lost again Wednesday. So it just sort of snowballed where that's the problem when you have such a big gap to overcome. And I think it's kind of saying the same thing about the Mets, where you use up so much energy, you use up so much of your good play to get back on even footing that you kind of run out of gas. And I think we're seeing that with the Mets too. Again, up 5-0 on the A's, lose 2 out of 3, blow that lead. That was a horrible loss by the Mets on Thursday. So some of these teams starting to slip not out of contention, because the Mets, again, 2 games out, the Red Sox 2.5 games out, but you're starting to see Mariners 4 games out, but you're starting to see some of these teams at least enter the danger zone where, hey, a bad weekend, a bad week, and you could be really putting yourself in a position where you're pretty much out of it. So fun games, nothing like pennant race baseball. We will discuss all of that and more with Scott Seidenberg. That is next. This is Shoulda Bet More podcast. All right, we are back, Shoulda Bet More podcast, and he is back. You can catch him at pregame.com. He joins us again. It is Scott Seidenberg. Scott, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Well, it's the crunch time, right, Will? I mean, football season's here. It's week 2 of the preseason. We're ready to go.
Absolutely. And I want to get to some NFL, because we've had like a newsier training camp that I feel like that in past years. I don't know if that's recency bias or I don't know, with all these injuries and a couple trades and transactions. I'll get your thoughts on that. But we'll start with baseball. And I'll leave it open-ended. I'll get to the AL East in a minute, because obviously we're going to talk Yankees. That's your team. It's my team. They've given us an interesting season. But other than the AL East, what of these pennant race interest you the most?
I think it's got to be the National League West. What was once a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers were going to win this division is not the case anymore. The Diamondbacks and Padres have been 2 of the hottest teams in baseball, if not the top 2 hottest teams in all of baseball since the All-Star break. And I know that the Dodgers are getting healthier, and I respect the Dodgers when they are at full strength and when they are healthy. But I can't deny how good of a lineup the Padres have, and whatever mojo that the Diamondbacks captured last year in running to the World Series, they have recreated it now, because this team is defying expectations and winning on a nightly basis. So I think this race is absolutely fascinating. It's a 2.5 to 3 game lead. The odds, however, are not indicative of a 2.5 to 3 game lead. I talked about this ad nauseum on my podcast earlier this week, when you could have gotten the Padres at north of plus 550 to plus 600, when they had the same deficit in their division as the Twins had in theirs in the American League Central, yet Minnesota was under plus 300 to win their division. So not all races are created equal, but I will say the Padres and Diamondbacks intrigue me the most out of any team that could rise up and win their division.
This is something, and I agree with a lot of that. And look, Padres, man, you get to that bullpen. If it's just, and these postseason games, you know how it goes, 2-2 after 6 innings. They can get a lot of outs out of Scott, out of Suarez, out of Adam, who they traded from the Rays. That's a good team. The Diamondbacks, I mean, just an incredible run. This is something I don't talk about a lot, as much as I talk about baseball. I'm going to put you on the spot. Forget the odds, forget long shots. Life on the line. Who wins the World Series?
Life on the line is tough. It's tough, because I would say now we have to decide this. It's as presently constituted, right?
Yeah, right now. Well, hey, who wins the World Series? It's simple as that.
If the World Series started, you're saying tomorrow. So we're not accounting for any players coming back healthy or ideal pitching rotations and things like that. We're just talking about tomorrow.
I say I give you $1 million. Just tell me who wins the World Series. Who are you going with?
Goodness. I'm going to go with the Phillies.
Me too. I think Wheeler, you get him twice in a 5-game series.
That's what I'm saying.
That ballpark, that lineup, and maybe three times in a 7-game series. I would still go with Philly. Now they've shown their cracks recently. I still think that's where I would go, but I'm with you.
They struggled so much lately, and they've been terrible, but they haven't lost ground in their division because everyone else is losing as well. It's funny. A couple of weeks ago, I bet the Mets at 30-1 to win the NL East, and the Phillies were just going in a free fall. And I said, man, this is the time for the Mets to catch up some games. They still have 7 games with the Phillies left. And I figured if they can cut this deficit to like 3 by the time these two teams meet in September, there's a chance. The problem is, as bad as the Phillies went during a 2-week stretch, the Mets matched them and went equally as bad, including getting swept last weekend. So they didn't gain any ground on the Phillies.
Yeah, and the Braves have played better. They played well this week in San Francisco, and they're playing San Francisco as we speak now. So they've kind of gotten back on track and maybe on the right side of the playoffs here. But yeah, no, I'm totally with you. All right, AL East, another couple of teams, Yankees, Orioles, where boy, it's just sort of fitting. And again, we're talking this before the Orioles play on Thursday. Yankees are off. Just sort of fitting they're around the same record because they've both been so hot, so cold. I feel like the Orioles struggles get buried a little bit because the Yankees are the Yankees and they're in New York, but the Orioles have been super up and down. What's your takeaway from the race? Yankees get 2 out of 3 from the White Sox. They win a game on Wednesday, desperately needed. And this looks like it's coming down to the wire. Where are you at with this race?
I think the Yankees have it because the biggest hole that the Yankees needed to fill was who bats cleanup behind Aaron Judge. And Austin Wells has not only emerged as that cleanup hitter, Austin Wells is the 3rd favorite to win American League Rookie of the Year right now. I'm sitting on a 30-1 from before the season started on Austin Wells. And I remember everyone laughed at me when I picked him to win it because he was nowhere. Even he was at 50, 60, 70-1.
100-1 too.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple weeks ago.
And then all of a sudden, he's had an incredible second half of the season, and it has provided the protection that the Yankees needed behind Aaron Judge. Because why would you pitch to Aaron Judge? Literally, why in the world? And I remember Michael Kay said this on the Yankee broadcast in July. It's like there's no one hitting behind him. They're struggling to find. They were putting Verdugo there. They were putting, Rice there. They didn't know who to bat behind Aaron Judge. And teams were just saying, we're just not going to let this guy beat us. So you pitch around there and Judge. Now that Austin Wells has emerged as that cleanup hitter for the Yankees, this lineup lengthens. They are legit now. You hate to lose Jazz Chisholm because he added the athleticism and the spark that they needed in that lineup. But I do think that the most important piece was finding someone to bat fourth behind Aaron Judge. And I think that Austin Wells has done that. So I do think the Yankees win this division.
I tend to agree with you. I don't trust them. I don't like the starting pitching night tonight. I really don't like the bullpen. I can't stand the bullpen. Holmes and all these guys Tonkin. And
Clark Schmidt's coming back. So that should be help.
Yeah. And look, I wanted more aggressiveness at the deadline. And you look, they got 3 guys. That was De Los Santos, Chisholm, who's always hurt, and now he's hurt.
They cut De Los Santos and Chisholm's on the IL.
So now you're sitting here in your big deadline where, hey, this is an all-in-year, 1 year of Soto, Judge older, Cole older, and all you came away with Mark Leiter Jr., who's a nice arm, gets swinging his stuff, but man, this is not the old Yankees. This is not the Yankees of 15, 20 years ago when we were growing up where, hey, they're going to go out and they're going to get the biggest fish. They're going to go shopping. It's not how they do it anymore.
No, it's not. I still think though, short series, obviously, but let's go to a 7-game series. You do get Garrett Cole twice, maybe 3 times.
Need him to be
pitch
Cole,
him on short rest.
You need him to be Cole.
That's true. That's right. And if it depends which version of Nestor Cortez you get. Oof. And then the Yankees can certainly mix and match with the arms in their bullpen because they do have several high leverage arms in the bullpen.
And Rodon's been better. Rodon, I think he gets look, he was paid a lot of money and he was terrible in year 1. And he had certainly a stretch year this year where he was awful, but he's given them some big starts when everyone else in the rotation was struggling. Pitched a good game in Boston, he's pitched some good games along the way here where he's actually, giving them a lift. Heel has bounced back. He's pitched pretty well, but he's hit a rough stretch lately. I don't know. You probably pitch him game 2 of a playoff series. I guess you'd go Cole, Heel, Rodon. That's very tricky.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to decide to do. We know that Garrett Cole starts game 1. That's all that they know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anything else baseball-wise interest you?
Yeah, I think the National League Rookie of the Year race is the most fascinating awards race that we've had in some time. Jackson Merrill, I talked about this earlier this week. He was at plus 350. Now he's down to plus 140. I'm kicking myself for even taking the plus 350 because he was north of plus 500, plus 600 before that. And I understand the Paul Skeens popularity contest. And when it comes to an award like this, sometimes it is just all about the popularity contest. And could the writers say, look at the storylines. He was the first number 1 overall pick to then, start the All-Star game. The year right after he was drafted, he's putting up elite numbers. My problem with Paul Skeens, though, is that it's very difficult for a pitcher to win this award. The last time a full-time pitcher, now I'm not counting the COVID shortened year when Devin Williams won for the Brewers because a reliever, I'm not counting it. I'm not counting Shohei Ohtani because he wasn't a full-time pitcher. The last full-time pitcher to win this award was in 2016 when Michael Fulmer did it for the Tigers. It's very hard for a pitcher to win it. You have to be overwhelmingly good. And if Paul Skeens doesn't pitch in the month of September, which I have a feeling the Pirates are out of the race, he's only going to make 3 more starts, maybe 4 more starts. That's it. We're getting, 18, 20, maybe at best case scenario, you're going to get 25, 27 innings from this guy for the rest of the season. So he has to really go undefeated and throw a shutout in maybe 2 of those 3 to 4 appearances in order for him to lock up this award. Now, if the Pirates want to pitch him until the last day of the season, I think that's just irresponsible. But Jackson Merrill plays every day. He made an all-star team as well. He is a shortstop playing outfield, center field for the first time in his baseball career.
Ton of big hits.
And exactly, he's tied with guys like Lou Gehrig for the most, 8th or 9th inning go-ahead game-tying home runs in a single season as a rookie. He's top 30 in wins above replacement. He's top 30 in WRC plus. I'm not talking about just rookies, Will. I'm talking about the entire league. I don't think you can just vote for Skeens because his girlfriend's an absolute smoke show, but Jackson Merrill has been the most impressive rookie, not just in the National League, in all of Major League Baseball this season.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating because same thing in the AL race. Like, is Heel going to get that consideration? I misspoke. I said, hey, he's bounced back and pitched well. He had that rough stretch where he did, pitch poorly. He did bounce back, but the last 2 starts have not been good. White Sox and Angels, he hasn't given them any length. But yeah, it's something to consider with both races. I don't know with Skeens because I agree. It's a matter of when, not if, they shut him down, just because it doesn't make any sense to just keep running him out there for 6-7 innings. I just don't know. Like, he's going to be the face of the franchise, such a big part of the team going forward. Do you want to annoy him? Do you want to tick him off and shut him down in September and cost him rookie of the year? I don't know if they want to go down that road with him, but they might. It's going to happen at some point, I would think.
He already got his accolades by starting the All-Star game, and well deserved, by the way, to start the All-Star game.
Sure.
But to just give him, remember, a lot of times when these voters vote, it's a what have you done for me lately type thing. Blake Snell last year had a phenomenal second half and stole the National League Cy Young Award. That's why I think Austin Wells is live for the American League Rookie of the Year, because if he finishes out the season strong, the writers aren't going to remember what he did in April and May. They're going to remember what he did in August and September. So Jackson Merrill right now, for a Padres team that is in a playoff push, that is performing on a nightly basis, making key plays in the outfield, getting clutch hits at the end of games, I think the writers are going to vote for him.
We'll switch gears here to the NFL. We've had trades, injuries. J.J. McCarthy, Judon gets traded from the Patriots to the Falcons, the defender. Take it whatever direction you want to go. Anything that's happened in terms of this news cycle that has triggered a bet or kept you off a bet or changes how you feel about a particular team?
It has not changed my opinion, but Matthew Judon being traded has reinforced my opinion that the Patriots will be the worst team in football this year. This is their best defender. First off, I think Gerard Mayo, great player from all indications, very talented assistant coach. The whole you fight in practice, and if you're a starter, you're playing the entire preseason game, or if you're a bench player, you're not going to play at all. Like, these are grown men, dude. Like, you're not a high school coach. Like, I don't like what I'm seeing from Patriots camp. We know that they're going to start Brissett and then eventually bring Drake May along. This team is just not good. I would go, and we talked about this on the Dream podcast this week on my pod. We said, how about an alternate win total under on the Patriots? So yes, you can bet them all these cute little exotic bets on to have the worst record or to be the worst team, the last winless team, all that fun stuff. But taking an alternate win total under, like an under 3.5, I think it provides you some nice plus money value.
How about the McCarthy injury? Any of this other stuff? Anything change how you feel?
Well, clearly Sam Darnold's going to win comeback player of the year, right? Because the Vikings are going to make the playoffs led by Sam Darnold. No. it's a shame. I was very high on JJ McCarthy. I was jumping on the hype train after. It's funny. We always overreact after like one preseason performance, but I was after one preseason performance. I said, "Who cares about Sam Darnold? JJ McCarthy's starting now for the Vikings," and now he's hurt, and it's Sam Darnold's team. They're fortunate that they do have a guy like Darnold who is a capable NFL quarterback, but behind him now, everything gets weaker. So if Darnold's hurt,
Yeah.
you're in the same situation you were last year where you have Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall, and then they had to bring in a Josh Dobbs. So I think the Vikings are in trouble. Unless Sam Darnold is incredible, which I don't think that's going to be the case, I think the Vikings are in serious trouble.
Yeah, it's a weird one to evaluate because a couple things. We didn't know if he was going to play, and we didn't know if he was going to be good. So it's this weird thing where you don't really know, what to make of it, because he might not have played anyway. He might not have been good, but he also could have been very good. So it's very hard to just sort of quantify it. But I think your point is the good one where, hey, with Darnold and McCarthy, you at least had two shots for one of them to be good.
Yes.
Now it's all on Darnold, and that's probably not a good bet.
See, the thing is, we always talk about this idea of the unscratched lottery ticket, right? And that's what some of these rookies are, because we don't know what we're going to get. There's a chance that when you scratch off the ticket, it's a loser. You rip it up, you throw it in the garbage. But there's also the chance that you're going to win the jackpot on the card. And the hope or the unknown of that lottery ticket is sometimes worth more than what is known, which is Sam Darnold. So I'd rather have gone with JJ McCarthy to see what he could have done rather than just knowing that Sam Darnold's going to win us, 5-6 games.
I think I had you on right around the NBA Finals. You talked about the Eagles. I think at plus money to win the division. Anything else you've added? Anything else you have conviction on? Hey, this team's going to be worse than most people think or better than most people think?
I hate to be the guy that just says, I'm on the Hard Knocks hype train, but I really do think the Chicago Bears are going to be a decent team this year. I saw a couple of bets out there. Like, you can bet the Bears to win the division, but I think the better bet on the Bears is their alternate win total over 10.5. Because if I think, you know what, hey, they're going to be good enough to win this division over the Lions and the Packers. Well, how many wins is that going to take? I don't think 10 wins the NFC North. I think you have to win 11 games to win the NFC North. So rather than, take a bet on them to win the division, let me just take a bet on their alternate win total over 10.5 and see if I can, win with the 11 wins, which maybe it doesn't win the division. Whatever happens. But I do think the Bears are going to be very competitive and very good this year. Yes, I might be buying into the Hard Knocks hype train, but Caleb Williams is a phenomenal talent, great athlete, and just bringing in the weapons that they have around him. It's, people want to talk about DJ Moore and, they got Keenan Allen. Okay, drafting Rome Odunze is massive. And the underrated move was the addition of DeAndre Swift in the backfield, because it gives them a pass catching option out of the backfield to go along with the wide receiving weapons. And then Cole Kmet at tight end is as good as they come. So I really do like this Bears offense. If the defense keeps them competitive in football games, I think the Bears have a real shot this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't watched the second Hard Knocks. I watched the first one. It was okay. I feel like it's so dependent on the head coach and their personality.
Yeah.
Like, when you get a guy like Rex Ryan who's always swearing, or Dan Campbell who's in your face and gives these good sound bites, it makes it so interesting. I think Eberflus is a little vanilla. He's a little bland, and that kind of kills it.
Yeah, I agree.
At least
with
the first one. I didn't watch the second one.
Yeah, you don't really get much Eberflus action. So yeah, I would agree that I do think that it relies on the personalities of the people. I really loved the offseason Hard Knocks that they did with the Giants, getting the insight into what goes on pre-draft, during the draft, all that stuff. I think is fascinating, much more relevant than the training camp stuff. I think the in-season Hard Knocks is okay, but I think what they decided to do with this offseason is really going to take that program to the next level.
Yeah, and I think the Hard Knocks, which I love, I watch it every year. I think it's been watered down by the fact that we just have so much content now. We had that receiver series, the quarterback series, in-season Hard Knocks, the preseason Hard Knocks. I agree. The front office one was a little bit different. I wonder going forward, like, why would teams agree to that? All your dirty laundry's getting out there, all your negotiations. Hey, we really like them, but we don't like them this much, or we like this player over that player. I don't see the upside of that. I really don't.
No, and the thing is, the teams have the final say, so they can agree to cut out whatever they want to cut out. But I do think that if you're an organization that is starving for attention, it's something that you want. Or if you're trying to change the narrative of your, of your organization, I think that's why you would do something like that.
You're a Jets fan, right?
I am.
Jets are loaded. Jets are going to be very good, and everyone who is discounting them, doubting them, is going to be wrong. Agree or disagree?
I have bet the Jets to have a 4-1 record, or 4 or more wins after week 5. So
Okay.
first 5 games of the year, I have them winning 4 games. So now if they beat the 49ers in week 1, it's like playing with house money, right? If they lose to the 49ers in week 1, they're favorites in the next 4 games. They're 4 very easy opponents. They should go 4-1. But there's a chance. Imagine if this Jets team is 5-0 after 5 weeks,
Oof.
and Aaron Rodgers is playing like an MVP.
There are going to be a lot, and I'm sure you're one of them. There are going to be a lot of nervous fans that first night. Just, hey, I don't care. You want them to win, you want them to look good. Just don't get hurt like the first game. Other than that, you know what? If you lose by a field goal or something, you look decent. Just get them off the field healthy. Then you beat up on the soft part of the schedule. But I agree. I think Rodgers can be fine. I think too much is being made of his age, his injury history. Remember, he was beat up a couple years ago. He had a bad thumb. People point to that. You're like, oh, he dropped off. I don't agree. I think he was just hurt. Now, look, he is older, but I think with all the talent around him, with the defense, I think they are set up to be really, really good. I would not be shocked if they're in the Super Bowl. That's actually my Super Bowl pick, is them over the Lions.
The Hassan Reddick thing is just absolutely ridiculous. I like the fact that they're taking a hard-nosed stance because it makes them look a little bit better, because this is a guy who wanted out of Philadelphia because he didn't get a contract. So you traded for him. Now, the assumption is when the Jets trade for a guy that publicly wanted out of his current team because of a contract issue, that means that they're aware of it and they're going to give him a contract. So the fact that now he wants out of the Jets because they're not giving him a contract, it makes the Jets look so bad that they traded for a guy, not knowing that he wanted a new contract. But I like the fact that they're kind of, saving face, coming out and saying, well, we were under the assumption that he was happy to play under his current deal, and we are not going to offer him a new contract. So I like that they're like sticking firm to that.
Yeah, and I don't know where his leverage is, because for people that are unfamiliar, he's holding out, but he's going to be 30, I think, in a couple of weeks. And if he sits out, the Jets own his rights next year, where you're going to be in the same position. You're going to be 31, 32. Like, you really don't have any choice. Usually the way these things get ironed out is they figure something out and they agree, whether the player takes a little bit of a haircut, the team, or they meet somewhere in the middle. I don't see his path where, hey, I'm going to sit out and I have all the leverage. He just doesn't seem to have the leverage.
No, I feel like what the Jets can do is just say, listen, no deal, but we'll forgive all the fines. And then he could say, okay, that's basically like him making an extra $1.5 million.
Right. Which I don't know if you can do. I thought I heard in the new CBA you can't waive the fines anymore. But I agree.
You know what? It's very weird language. It's like in certain situations you can, in other situations you can't. So I don't know if it has to do with like players on their rookie deals you
Gotcha.
can or can't, or whatever it is. Yeah, there's weird language about teams forgiving penalties.
Yeah, but I think the bottom line is it's a blinking contest, and eventually, you know what, you're gonna get the player to blink, or you're gonna figure something out where he just doesn't have the leverage to to hold out and get what he wants. Scott, this was awesome as always. I appreciate the time, man. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, this podcast is Straight Out of Vegas AM, available wherever you get your podcasts from. Also, RJ Bell's Dream Preview. I'm on social media at Scott's On Air, SCOTTSONAIR.
All right, Scott, appreciate it, man. Hopefully we'll catch up here down the road.
Anytime, Will.
All right, thank you to Scott Seidenberg. Enjoy the weekend, and we will be back Monday. Rate, review, subscribe. See you Monday.